Welcome to The Resilient Responder, the podcast where we explore stories of strength, courage, and unwavering resilience in the face of life's challenges told by first responders. Join us on a journey of inspiration and empowerment as we dive in with Dylan, Josh, and Patrick. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to The Resilient Responder, the Resilient Responder hosted by Scars Incorporated and sponsored by First Responder Coaching. My name is Patrick Clark, and to my left...
Did you forget what we were doing tonight, or what?
That was our
sitting there for an hour. Yeah, and not like we, already started,
Oh my goodness. let's take two.
Yeah, take two. Yeah. Good evening, everybody. I'm Dylan, as you know. Josh Hagan.
And then we are welcoming a special guest with us, and we'll let him do his introduction. However, it is a Veterans Day special for us. We want to recognize and thank from the bottom of our hearts all the veterans that have served and protect this great country to be able to do exactly what we're doing right now. But Mr. Morgan, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Jason Morgan. I've been a first responder for the last 35 years, starting out with River Road Fire Department in 1988, joining Westover in 1989, and I'm currently inactive, but I was with Westover for almost 25 years active. Started out with Monty MS after Desert Storm, back in the volunteer days. I don't know if anybody remembers those volunteer days. Worked with people like Kevin Seymour, Gary Stroline, Bruce Kuhn, a lot of the older names. And then continued with the fire service. Started with JanCare Ambulance in 2000, spent 6 years with them. And then in 2008, started Montague County Sheriff's Department and spent the last 15 years with them. And I left in August 19th. August 18th was my last day. August 19th, I declared my candidacy for Sheriff of Montague County and started a month later part-time with Star City Police to keep up my police certifications while I run for Sheriff.
So when do you sleep?
I'll tell you what, I worked last night, Star City. I got off at 2 in the morning and was back up. I also do security detail. I've been with the Chestnut Ridge Church security detail team with the Sheriff's Department for 15 years. And then I asked them if I could continue, and they were kind of like, why? So I just explained that they're like family. I mean, I've known half the people in that church longer than I've known my own daughter. She's 13 years old. Wow. So I've known them longer than I've known my own daughter. So I asked them, and they gladly accepted me.
That's
so
awesome.
Great.
I did that today, and I got about an hour nap.
So, being Veterans Day, or just after Veterans Day now, I'd like to dive right in. So, Desert Storm, huh? How was, you were in what branch?
I was in the Army. Mm-hmm. Joined the Army April 1990. Basic training was one station unit training. I was a 19 Delta Scout in Fort Knox, Kentucky for 18 weeks. And then from there I went overseas and spent 2.5 years overseas.
In the sandbox.
Berlin,
huh?
Germany.
Oh.
So it's good times.
Right.
Took a significant injury and was medically discharged about 6 months later. And I've been battling that ever since.
Really?
So what encouraged you to come back and dive into the first responder realm after an injury like that?
You know, it's one of those things you hear people always say. It's something that I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. I was like an adrenaline junkie. I could have joined the Army and got a computers were just starting out. I could have taken a job like that, but I took a job that was like special operations. I went through commando school when I was in Germany. Just some of the training was, small arms, large arms, tank, Humvees, just all different kinds of things that I got to train with. So I come back here and it's back to fire trucks and ambulances, just to get that keep that cars. Adrenaline going. The police cars, Cars.
So when did you go through the academy?
State Police Academy I went through in 2008 or 2009. I'm sorry, I got hired September 1st, 2008. And I left about January 3rd or 4th of 2009.
What class were you?
I was in the 137th.
Wow.
And that was for the Sheriff's Department? You went right
Yes.
into? Okay, gotcha. So jack of all trades. So when we start talking about when we start talking about that world of frontline workers, first responders, that's all encapsulating, right? So starting with military, and we've talked a lot about that on several of the shows of how we see a lot of military folks transition into that world, and some of it is that adrenaline junkie part. It is that, that still willingness to,
Help
give
people.
back to their
Help
brothers
people,
and sisters and so on and so forth. So it's a natural transition to that.
Hey, before we get, I know you was getting ready to talk, Jason, but before we jump in too far, we're flirting between 14 and 17 people, so like always, give a shout out where you're from and who you're on. We can see how many people's on.
Yeah, I'm
but we
seeing some new
can't-
names on tonight.
We can't see names. You can see names.
I can see when people log
Comment.
No, I see that people are watching for the most part. So, but still, it's always good to get a shout out and
Yeah,
get some
let's do a
comments
shout
on
out.
board.
I can't see that, so
Yeah,
Let us-
I don't know why.
Let us know where you're from. Let us
Yeah.
know your department, if you're affiliated with anybody.
department
Um,
station or whatever the case.
One
I
of
like
the
new people.
one of the things that's the most interesting, and again, the hour before our show, we get to sit around and talk with our guests, and we've had a lot of good conversation. But Jason's professional career is nothing to shake a stick at. He's done a little bit of everything. But your volunteer career with the American Legions, the FOPs, the Deputy Sheriff's Association, and all that, can you just kind of run us down that path of what that looks like?
So each agency has their own like association, almost sort of like a union, if you will. Deputy Sheriff's has Deputy Sheriff's Association. State Police have State Troopers Association. Military-wise, there's several different groups. I'm a life member of the Westover VFW, Post 9916. I'm a life member of the Disabled American Veterans, Chapter 45. I'm a 3-year member of the American Legion, Post 174 in Morgantown. I'm also the ambassador to a group called Mission 22, which focuses on education for the 22-a-day veterans that commit suicide. It's a group, they're out of Moses Lake, Washington. 3 special operations guys formed this thing back in 2013 is when they formed this. So there's a bunch of different things that they do. They attend parades and pass out stuff, but it's more education. And then I've been a member of the FOP for almost 4 years. And then again with the Deputy Sheriff Association, 15 years. I was vice president for 2 years, president for 3 years. Just different things that we do there. We do the Shop with the Deputy program. We do the Thanksgiving basket program. Will be coming up. I'm gonna hate to miss it.
Right.
It was always nice, always fun to do that. And I think I reflect back on Todd May, was one of our deputies that was killed in 2012. Was one of his passions was doing things like that for the kids, doing things for families, needy families. And one thing that Todd taught me, he was one of my FTOs, one thing he taught me was not everybody's got to go to jail. Show a little bit of compassion for people, There's some reason that they've done what they've done. Listen to them. So when I transport people after I arrest them, I listen to them. I let them talk. I listen to them. Other than the ones that are drunk and belligerent that you can't understand. But most of the time, they'll tell you a hardship story. Some of them you can tell they're BSing you. But a lot of times there's legitimate reasons behind some of their stories.
Now, Todd May, speaking of that, you were there, so losing a brother like that, losing a part of the family, the law enforcement family. How is that for you personally, and what steps were taken, during the event, after the event, to try to bring that togetherness back to the department?
So before he answers that, myself, I'm not from Mon County, and some of our listeners aren't. Who was Todd?
Oh, I'll let him answer that too.
So let's do a part A. Who was Todd, and then a part B of Dylan's question.
So Todd was a sergeant with the Montague County Sheriff's Department. He was one of the afternoon shift supervisors. Todd loved to do DUI grant, and it was so happened that night Todd and I were working DUI grant, and he was on Hartman Run Road, and I was on Earl Court. I think it might be flip-flopped, one or the other, but we were both sort of in the general area. If he had to stop and was doing field sobriety, I'd go over and back him up, vice versa, same thing, he'd come over to me. And then the incident happened, pursuit started, and ended up, the guy, I'm not even gonna mention his name, goes into Pennsylvania and comes back on I-79 southbound. And Todd's sitting in the median, waiting to get in behind the pursuit, and this guy just purposely drove straight out on Todd and killed him. So on the scene, I mean, we were all there. I mean, the guys that were in the pursuit behind him witnessed everything. I was just coming down the interstate and not 30 seconds behind the incident. And then arriving on scene, knowing that the years I spent in EMS, you know, trauma was like one of my best skills. I hated medical.
Don't we all?
But trauma was my best skills, and you know, and then I'm sitting there, and I'm running over, and I've got, you know, two more sergeants that are sitting there looking at me, screaming for me, do something, Morgan, do something, Morgan, knowing that, you know, I'm kind of the only one there that had any kind of training. So, you know, we did everything we could. We went from the Mount Morris line all the way to Ruby Hospital, and that's where they'd pronounced Todd dead.
How did you start to rebuild that? I mean, being somebody who whenever you came up in the sheriff's department, Todd was your initial FTO, is that?
He was one of my FTOs when I got out of the academy.
So you guys grew a bond there, and I'm sure as you continued, that bond continued as well. How did you come back from that?
I don't know. It was, I mean, I'm going to say that I still really haven't come back all the way from that.
Yeah.
I have a camp down in Elkins where Todd was building a cabin. Him and his brother and his dad were building a cabin, literally 1 mile from doorstep to doorstep from where my camp is to his cabin. And when I would still get down there, I would see his mom and dad down there, and you can just still see the pain in their eyes. And every time I see that, I reflect back. And, you know, I don't know. It's one of those things that you're never fully gonna heal from it. You're on fatalities all the time when you're in police, fire, EMS. And
There's a difference of knowing the person.
oh yeah,
That's I'm not going to say that's key, but there's a huge difference. No one wants to see tragic events happen,
right.
but that's the line of work that we're in. But we don't prepare to lose one of our own. That would
No.
almost be planning for failure, right?
Right, absolutely.
So when you don't want to plan for failure, what was so you get to Ruby, they pronounce Todd dead. What then what? Everybody go home?
No. From there, the administration was obviously, they were notified immediately of what happened. Everybody kind of went to the hospital. And I'm not just saying sheriff's department, I'm talking every agency was there. You know, it's a brother sisterhood.
Sure.
So everybody's there to show support. And then we were all told, all of our guys to go back to the office and just wait in the training room. And the sheriff and they'd come up with something to talk to us about. Obviously, we didn't go back to work. State police had called people in, Morgantown, Westover. They covered everything up until that for a few days. Up until a few of the guys come back to work. Those of us who were actually with Todd that night, we were off for a little while. I think it was 2 days later, we had a critical incident stress debriefing at Valley Mental Health. Thank God for that. That included dispatchers, fire department that was there, Pennsylvania firefighters that were there, EMS personnel. There was it was a good group of people and good discussion, and it helped greatly. It takes that little bit of heartache away from you when you can sit and talk about
Yes.
talk about that stuff.
And I think, you know, that happened in a time where we still had the suck it up and deal with it attitude. And
What year was that?
2012, February
2012.
2012.
Yeah. So you think about, you know, the amount of time that has spanned since that, and I can obviously see, you know, that he can still, and that's where we come from, first responder community. Like, we vividly remember certain things like that. And thankfully, they did have some sort of debriefing. So I think that the question would become is, you know, how do we make that better? How do we improve that process to be able to, you know, get our brothers and sisters to help quicker than, you know, letting it sit for that long? Because, you know, there may be still people that struggle just like you from that incident. You know, so what's the longer term solution? How do we help fix, you know, how do we help bridge that gap? Because, you know, you're never bringing your brother back, I get that, but on the other sense, how can we improve to make sure that somebody hasn't had this bottled up for the past, you know, 10, 12, 14 years?
I think talking
somebody-
about
Yeah.
it one time is good. It's better than no times.
Sure.
It's better than taking
Sure.
it home. It's better than not talking about it. But what's the follow up? And is there a follow up?
It's not only that though, but number one, it's kudos to you to be able to sit here and relive that in your mind, and to be able to share that story. That takes that takes a person of such stature and such mental ability to even do that. But, you know, somebody put a comment. It's on YouTube. It says, "I think it does a huge disservice to first responders and their families not to have a plan for a line of duty death." And, you know, it's true, because
Very true.
no department wants to. They don't sit down and say, okay, this is going to happen here, so we better develop this plan. It may just be a standard SOP or SOG that's you know, encapsulated with everything else. But what agency sits down and says, okay, this is going to happen here? And honestly, they need to.
Yeah.
Because it's not when, it's not if, it's not if, it's when.
Yep. Not if it's when. That's
And-
one of the things we learn in the academy.
And you also, and now you take on today's society that we're living in with the increase of drugs that we're having. That's a national issue. And why would you not have those resources ready to go at the drop of a hat? Because you know it's going to happen. We're going to have officer-involved shootings. We're going to have paramedics that are you know, could very potentially be in a very violent situation. We know of one.
Sure.
I was there on that as well.
Yeah. And you know, firefighters are inherently dangerous, you know, with the conditions and things that they do. But this is something that should be developed, ready to go, turnkey basically. Because it's not if, it's when.
Well, and I think that to capitalize on that, that's kind of where some of the idea of our organization came into effect was, you know, there is so much going on of you know, you take that instance, that incident in particular, there's so much other things going on. Wouldn't it be nice to just pick up that phone and say, hey, this is what we've got, this is what needs dealt with, and somebody else has that playbook to where, you know, if I'm the fire chief and I just lose one of my members, I'm not in a mental capacity to go to my own SOG to, you know,
What do you do
this
next?
step, this step, this step.
That's right.
It's easier for me to pick up the phone and say, hey guys, we just had this, please come and help us, and your hands off at that
That's right.
point. Because
drop and walk
I'm
away.
just as affected, you know, which your sheriff at the time should have been just as affected, and you know,
Absolutely
every
was.
other officer that was involved in that incident, to where none of you were able to really think clearly enough to, okay, let's go get the handbook out and see what it tells us next.
Yeah.
So
It was hard enough just to go back to work.
right,
And try to function.
Yeah. So how long were you allowed to be off before you was expected to come back and perform your duties?
I mean, those of us that were actually there on site, I think there was 6 or 8 of us, and we were off for a couple weeks.
Is that right?
Yeah, we did the critical incident stress debriefing, not the same day because this happened in the early morning hours. So it was the day after we had the critical incident stress debriefing, and after the critical incident stress debriefing, Todd's brother Frankie and he had put a kind of like a get together at Todd's house. Opened the doors to everybody. Anybody that wanted to come was welcome. God, I'll never forget that day as well.
Right.
It's sad, but it's funny because half the people there got food poisoning. They not sure what it was they ate, but I didn't get the food poisoning, but I will say
One
that was
last
quality for
prank,
Todd.
or-
That's
I was gonna
exactly
say,
right.
right.
That would have been that's one of Todd's last one of his last things.
So you had this incident that was in what year did you say it was?
2012.
2012. And then, if I recall correctly, you, and I think you're one of the few people that I know that's been involved in this, but you've also been involved in an officer-involved shooting. Is that
Yes.
so? And how long after did that incident take place?
That was in I believe it was 2019.
Okay, so a few years span.
And obviously there was things in,
Mhm.
you know as well with EMS. I spent time in EMS as well.
Oh yeah.
So you've seen things from that incident up into 2019, bad vehicle crashes and stuff like that.
So like we talked about, replacing trauma with trauma with trauma. It's that
Continuous
revolving
trauma.
cycle. Yep.
And then after that it was okay. Well, you guys are going to be off for a few days, and I'm waiting on the phone call to say, hey, we're meeting. You're going to go here, and you're going to do this with this group of people here. We're going to go over this and have some follow up, some critical incident stress debriefing. Unfortunately, it never happened. We didn't have anything like that. We were sent to a psychiatrist and asked a handful of questions, and okay, go back to work. And
Wow.
and it was like wow. So,
Wow.
but it's the stuff like that that builds and builds and builds and just continues. Like you were saying about having that plan. That's what I've been wanting to do for so long, and I finally got the foot in the door with Valley.
Yes.
And the same day, I reached
Yes.
out to Dylan. I was like, brother, you ain't gonna believe this. And he's all on board. So we're still working. I was in a
Yeah.
meeting, not with him directly, but it was the Veterans Suicide Coalition at Valley. I would have got to approach him afterwards, but it was over an hour late, and I
Right.
had to go to my
We
other,
always seem to be in those meetings way longer than they're scheduled, which isn't a
Yeah.
bad thing.
right. So I had to leave and go to my other job to pick some vegetables. As I'm doing this campaigning for sheriff, I work part time for Star City Police, and I work at Operation Welcome Home. I do what's called a high tunnel. It's like an indoor greenhouse, and I do that, and it's kind of like a stress reliever, because I'm by myself. I'm with all these plants and flowers and vegetables and stuff like that. And I get to see this is stuff growing from the earth, and I can harvest it, and knowing that from there it's going to a group called Healthy Kids. Food gets processed and it goes out to homeless, needy people. So it's very satisfying to do that, and sort of like my own stress reliever.
Yeah.
That's something that we've talked about with this is having annual or biannual wellness checks. Are you okay,
we've
bro?
talked about
You
that.
good?
Yeah.
Those kind of things to where you actually bring somebody in. The car wrecks that we've seen over the years. Dylan and I were on one. My last week as a deputy was my trial. Almost 4 years later from Stephanie Eddy. She a coal truck carrying asphalt, and being right there, I was literally, it was, I want to say 6 minutes from the time the call was dispatched. I was on scene. I was already out in the Blacksville area, so I was there. The Miss Statler from Statler's Market. I mean, I hated seeing her on the stand testifying. That destroyed her. I mean, destroyed her. She's not the same, and she'll tell you she's not the same. She said, I never want to relive that again. And it's not just first responders. She's a grandma, a mom,
Yeah.
And she had to deal with this. She had to sit there and do what she could to tell Stephanie, hey, we're going to do everything we can, until first responders got there. And then Sammy Nutter. I've never seen Sammy in that, that situation, when he turns around and looks at me and he's just almost in tears.
Yeah.
And he had no idea who she was, but you're so helpless. And that stuff builds and builds and builds.
I got there later in the call, and I can remember coming up to you and seeing the look on your face, and I think we hugged at that point because I think we all knew at that point what the end result was, and then I went looking for Sammy because we'd started to do some other things on that scene, but that was a very difficult scene for a lot of people, and none of us knew it at the time. Again, we're in this. We move on to the next call, and Sammy actually had a very green.
Yes,
Person.
I remember that.
Yeah, that I can't remember. I can't remember right now who it was, but
I don't think
I'm
she's
not
in
even
EMS
sure
anymore.
that she came back.
I don't think she did.
I don't know. I don't know that she did.
I could be wrong
And-
if Sammy's on here.
Yeah, I think Sammy did log on to there. So, but I can remember we got her a ride back, and I'm almost sure we sent her home, and that was a that was a day that, because we all went to the pre-trial and all that, and we had to all look through the photos again, and that's what a lot of the normal viewer doesn't realize is, even after the incident, when there becomes charges and there becomes a trial, we relive
You have
it
to relive it.
twice, three
Time and
times,
time
four
again.
times. I didn't realize you all went back on.
I
the
had
case
I had
again.
4 different hearings for that, 4 different suppression hearings, and it was, almost every time I went in, it was body cam video played over again. And I mean, I guess, excuse me, I'm somewhat of an emotional person. I get emotional at times, and I try and testify on some of these things, and I just relive this.
Yeah.
Hearing her crying,
Yeah.
and then now that's it. And like we said, it's one trauma to the next.
Yeah.
And I don't have as much in law enforcement as what it was in EMS. I mean, I've seen EMS crews go from this. They work cardiac arrest. Their ambulance looks like somebody set a bomb off in it, and next thing you know, boom, they're short staffed as well. Got to go to the next one. You're grabbing stuff, you're throwing, hey, do I have these? And you go to the next trauma. You go to the next call.
Yeah.
And it wasn't long after that I had another bad call out on the western end of the county.
Yeah. Like the western end, it'll blow up, and now
Yeah.
we had some bad fires out there, some bad wrecks out there, and it always seemed like the same ones always were there every single dang time, and it was like, this is just crazy.
But there's nothing after that.
No.
There was no critical incident stress
No.
debriefing. There was no follow-up conversations. There were no, you all right, Morgan? What there was on the second one was out off of Zebhot Road. Tractor rolls over on a guy, myself and the other guy, we witness it.
Yeah.
And we get there, and I'm looking at this guy. The tractor's on
They
top of
watched it
this
happen.
guy.
Yeah.
We watch it, and I'm looking at this guy, and he can't even talk. This tractor, big tractor, is laid on top of him. He's bent in half. He's looking at me right in my eyes, just mouthing the words, "Help me." And I can't do anything because we try to pull the tractor off, and the wheels were hooked on a more or less a sapling. And if that thing would have snapped, that tractor would have been right on me and the other deputy. 2 days later, I didn't even. It bothers me as a veteran deputy, and this he wasn't he wasn't a rookie. He had less than 5 years, but I didn't bother to ask him. You all right, man? 2 days later, he says something to me. He goes, man, he said, that messed me up. And I thought, God, you know what? I should have said something to him.
Right.
And then I sit and think about myself. I'm going, well, shit, nobody ever asked me,
Right.
Are you okay?
Right.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
There is nothing. You go on these fatalities, you need, if it's just a 5-minute conversation with somebody, you need to talk, or a group like this. We just sit around and BS for a few,
Right.
like you talk about the back of the fire trucks or
The
whatever it was you
town
said,
board, yeah.
the
The
behind the car wash or whatever
yeah,
it was.
Yeah,
So-
behind the post office,
You know-
this, that, and the other.
So I guess the question that comes to my mind is the 2012 incident with Todd. Who made the decision that something had to happen and was that person not present or there or available, so to say, when the other incidents happen? Like, who makes the decision when there needs to be
A debriefing,
a
you mean?
debriefing? Yeah. Whose decision is that?
I would think it would be a group thing, you know, to where the chiefs, your fire chiefs, your sheriff, your
Is that-
chief administrators, that they get together and say, hey, we need to set something up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was actually Bob Music from Valley who stepped in and said, hey,
Is that right?
you know, I think we should get something together here, you know, because there's a lot of people affected by this.
Yeah.
I mean, all the way to, and like I always say, I consider tow operators and dispatchers, they're just as much a first responder as
Yep,
what we are, police, fire, and
absolutely.
EMS. They're your
Absolutely.
first line of defense.
Right.
If you
So-
if you take that responsibility on as yourself as a first responder, though, now we're into that persona of I don't want to be the person that raises my hand and says I need help.
Right.
And sometimes you have certain people that'll raise their hand on behalf of the group, but at the same time, I believe that if we put the right leaders in the right positions, they have their feet on the ground, out in the ambulances, out in the cruisers, out in the on the fire scenes to be able to recognize their people. And I think that I want to say when Matt and Mike were here, they knew from their firehouse of what was going on because of how much time they spent there. They knew their
That's what
crew.
Matt was saying that
Yeah.
whenever that he's and I think that your statement, put in the right leaders in the right positions, is valid, but it's it's putting the people in the positions that have the ability to have that compassion, to be able to understand that if Dylan or Jason or Josh or anybody walk into the room and they're not their normal self, what does that look like? Maybe Dylan walks in and instead of we know how he greets us whenever he walks up here.
Yes.
But,
Wow.
but imagine that door opening and Dylan not. We would immediately key in on that.
Yeah.
And go.
What's wrong with
Yeah,
that?
what's up? And I think that that's where a lot of it is, and I think that this is a larger problem, is that people don't take the time to get to know their people.
Right.
They don't.
I think that's what's key. Yeah,
It-
and that's
and
kind
they
of what I
don't-
was getting to. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
but
that's
I mean,
right.
they don't take the time to see that Dylan's off, or like or wait a second, like you never walk in here like that. Like, what's up with that? And even if it's just pulling them aside, going real quick, just going, hey man, are you good?
Right.
Or watching how that goes, and I think that a lot of people they don't take that time, and I think that that's where the key is when it comes to being able to catch that. And like what when Matt and Mike were here, Matt said, I know when one of my people walk in the firehouse and something's off. I know when somebody walks through the doors after a call, if it got to them. And then being able just to nonchalantly, don't make a big deal out of it, nonchalantly grab that person to the side, say, hey man, let's go for a walk real quick. And don't pull them into an office. Go for a walk, do whatever it is, and be like, hey, so that call the other day, man, it was jacked. How are you processing that? How's that going for you? And it's not trying to make. And for the longest time, I was so worried that I would make somebody relive the incident, but you have to.
You do.
You have to relive the incident.
You absolutely do. And that's one of the biggest things,
I
man.
think to
is-
your terms, though. To your terms, when you have to relive the incident in the caliber of the way that you were reliving it, is different than you reliving it because you want to talk about it. When you're made to talk about something versus volunteering the information to get something off your chest, I think one's therapy and the other one is reliving the incident for truly what you don't want. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's the way that I look at it.
Well, I want to put him on the spot just a little bit.
No.
So how do you fix it if you become, if you win this election and you get the opportunity to help build something for the officers that you wish you had then? What would that look like?
It would be, some of the things that you and I've discussed before, either annual wellness checks or biannual wellness checks. And like we talked with the CEO of Valley,
Yeah.
those are things that they're not on the books.
Right.
Like he talked about,
Yep.
it can affect somebody's career that
Yeah.
you have some of those things on.
Right.
But we don't want to not address the problem. If somebody's got a serious problem, let's address that problem. Let's get them the help that they need. We'll come back from this. We can come back from this.
Right.
But if it's just an incident where it was a bad crash, and you just want to go in, but let's go in there and chat about it for a minute. It may be I'm all right. I've seen a lot of things, but the ones that continue to build. One of the biggest things in this, I think all of these discussions that we have is, I've seen people come back from critical incidents. They turn to alcohol.
It's one of the first things.
They turn to drugs. They turn to domestic violence at home. I've literally talked to some of the spouses of the current deputies, and I've talked. Everybody knows I was running. They knew I was going to run anyway. And I would see them out somewhere, and they would talk to me on the side, and they would sit there and say sometimes, man, I hope you change something in that place if you get elected, because man, sometimes he comes home, he is miserable. And it's miserable to deal with. But again, you go back, you got domestic violence, and then suicide.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to say earlier is how you talked about military veterans that transition back from the military into first responders. Some statistics that I always share when I do some of my meet and greets and different things like that are some statistics in the veteran portion of it, where we have 22 a day, Mission 22. It's all about the 22.
I didn't realize the number was that high, by the way.
Wow,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, since 9/11, I'm going to bump the numbers because those statistics are up to December 31st, 2021.
Okay.
I just made that thing.
I know. That's a villain role, but go ahead. You're all right.
So I'm going to bump the numbers up just a hair, not a lot, but just a hair. But from September 11th, and we'll never forget that, to December 31st of 2021, right around 8,000 soldiers have been killed in the line of duty. The same time frame, 9/11 to December 21, almost 32,000 veterans and active duty military personnel. Veterans and active duty military personnel have committed suicide.
Wow.
Now, how many of those active duty or how many of those veterans were first responders?
Yeah. Yeah, probably more than what we care to admit.
I know a bunch of guys I worked with at the sheriff's office were military veterans. A bunch of them in EMS, a bunch of them in the fire departments, lots of them in the fire departments. And they come back, it gives them that sense of, I'm not in the military anymore, but I can still help out in my community.
Yep.
And I think that's it. And I've always wondered to myself, why is it that so many people that are veterans, they come back and they get in the first responder? And I've had people tell me, because I want to help, because I want to continue to do what I do. Because when you are in, and I've never been in the military, never been in part of a military at all, but when you go over and you're fighting for something as large as America, as a country, I mean, you're fighting for the freedom of this country, and other reasons, obviously, but, when you come back, having to, what is the normal transition period for somebody that's active duty?
I'm trying to think with law enforcement wise. I want to say, and I'll say Steve McCroby was one of the first ones that came back from Afghanistan. I think he had like 90 days to transition to get back from being deployed in a combat zone, and 90 days to kind of decompress from all that, transition back to here, and then come back to work. Now,
So-
obviously, they don't just say, boom, throw you right. Unfortunately, that incident did actually happen, and it was a somewhat of a hostage situation, and Steve was the supervisor. and he just literally had just started back to work.
Oh,
If
wow.
not that day, that week, that he'd been off the 90 days since he'd come back, but it was like that was the first call he had where, we're out on Grafton Road, Brewer Road, and this guy's highly intoxicated. He already cracked one round off in a house full of people, his family. So it was one of those things, and Steve's just like, really? Really?
But
Right.
But imagine 90 days of trying to flip your life 300 or 180 degrees.
Yeah.
Back to a normal civilian after spending God knows how long in an active combat zone. You get 90 days to flip it back.
Yeah.
But is it 90? And I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
But if you isolated me for 90 days, or like, and I'm sure they're not isolated in one certain spot, but imagine your own psyche going through that for 3 months. You're trying to learn how to be a civilian again, but you're also fighting the fact of, wait a second, I know how to be a civilian. I've done this before. Why are you? I mean, it's a double-edged sword. And I'm glad. And Eric is I'm pretty sure he's still active. But it says it's because the environment of the military and first responders is very similar, the camaraderie and the structure.
Yeah.
And I think that is where a lot of it come from. Hannah said something really good. Someone once told me that a veteran mentioned to him that EMS is more traumatizing than being deployed because veterans come home and relearn to feel safe. We, on the other hand, keep going in day after day and
Trauma
don't get a
after
chance
trauma.
to actually decompress.
So
Right.
one of the things that you said, Patrick, was you have 90 days to learn how to be a normal civilian. Are first responders normal civilians? I mean,
No.
What's your
No.
definition? What's your definition of normal?
You're right. We
That's
talk
what
about
I'm
this
saying.
often.
Go to your-
You're not normal.
That's
But
what
I mean,
I'm saying.
But that's the and
Think
I
of
think
the
I think
conversations.
Well, Hannah and Hannah's point is that
Mm-hmm.
there is that time that people. Or, you get that transitional period from, and I'm not taking anything away from veterans, and none of us are whenever we
Sure.
say that, but you and Dylan, I've sat here and I've listened to your stories. You were involved actively in trying to save one of your best friends' lives after a very traumatic event while you were on duty.
Yeah.
Dylan and myself and Jason have been we've been able to we've operated on scenes together as a team, and we've done this. Brittany put up a good comment about whenever she had her baby a couple months later, she had a pediatric arrest. Where is the reset or the timeout for us? Where is the reset? There are some people that will say, again, the suck it up. This is what you signed up for. No. When I went to EMT class, it wasn't to hold a lifeless child in my arms or to hold a grandmother's hand while she took her last breath. It was never talked about. And I think that is a lot of it is EMS is more traumatizing in certain aspects, but also take into consideration the training that people that are going into combat get. What training do we get? We can train airway, breathing, circulation all day long. We can train how to get fire or get water out of a fire truck. Like, we could do all that. But where's the training of, you're gonna see some bad stuff, bro.
Yep.
And I think that's where
That's what ended my EMS career. Was that I quit EMS altogether, and I went and worked for Swanson Plating for 2 years before I went to the sheriff's office. My uncle, I was transporting him to Pittsburgh. When I left Mon General, got to the Coliseum, he went to cardiac arrest. Turned around, go back, he died. My mother was in there. It was my mother's brother. My mom was in there with him. That hurt. And then within a week, I had a pediatric cardiac arrest on Dunkard Avenue in Westover. Baby was 7 days old. Worked that baby for an hour. After that, I said, I'm done. But I will, and I know a lot of people aren't JanCare fans, but I spent 6 years with JanCare. I will give them some kudos. When those incidents happen, they sent somebody up to talk to me.
I've heard that from several people that
And
they're on top
I
of it.
actually talked to Todd Cornett, the owner of JanCare, with what we've got kind of going on. And he referred me to Paul Seaman. I'm sure most everybody on here knows who Paul Seaman is. He's only got the Chinese alphabet after his name.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and one of the most recent things, he attended a school, and I think he got some sort of degree in it in like trauma counseling.
Really.
So, JanCare, I mean, they take care of their people, man. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember years ago they had the crew in the ambulance that
Yeah,
drove right in the
up
back
on
of that
19.
tractor
Yeah,
trailer.
yeah.
Yep, right on 19.
And I mean, let me tell you, I mean, it was boom. They had a team of counselors like
Right.
right there.
Yeah.
We talked earlier about having that plan.
Mhm.
You don't ever want to plan for these things, and I guarantee you, there's nobody that has plans that do these. But I can tell you, JanCare has a plan. Being part of their management team, I always knew that this is what the procedure you follow. If something should happen to one of your employees, this person's contacted first, that person, and then they contact everybody else.
And
So-
you know the fact of never knowing what you're walking into, and I'm like you. I don't take anything from veterans, but you know we start talking about the Tipple collapse there. That was Humphrey, wasn't it? Or it was in Granville.
The very lower end of Granville.
You know, so you know that was at a time before like USAR teams were a big thing. So pre 9/11, this, that, and the other. So here you are in a very unfamiliar environment, taking care of people in very odd situations. You know, and not only that, but you guys probably had every available resource, you know, at that point in time. So I can only imagine what kind of experience that was and how traumatizing that was, especially for somebody who maybe had never been in a coal mine or in that environment or so on and so forth. And I know a lot of people from the older generation of Mon folks that from back in the volunteer days and back before, you know, it was all screwed up like it is, that can remember that call and know the specifics of that call. And that was in around what year? 90.
It was mid-90s. I'm not even exactly quite sure.
Now you
when
were
it was.
back from the service at that
Yeah,
point,
I
right?
was with
Okay.
Westover Fire Department, and it was a bingo night.
Really?
It was on a Tuesday. I can tell you that because it was a bingo night.
Okay.
And I know Gary Lee was there. Giggs was there. I remember that. Just trying to find the two guys that were underneath there was one of the hardest things. When we were able to get down, myself and Dave Anderson.
Dr.
And wow, Dr. Dave.
Dave. Was he a doctor at that
Hammond.
point?
Oh yeah, he was a
Okay,
doctor.
okay.
Herzog wasn't yet.
Okay.
Herzog was
Really?
still running rescue.
Wow.
He was running rescue. This is when Monty MS was off of Point Marion Road there by
Okay.
the recycling plant.
Yeah.
In the storage units.
Yeah.
That's way back. But yeah, I mean when you're sitting there and you're I guess you could say you were underground because you're talking a million tons of steel that just literally compressed these guys down and, you know, 20, 30 feet of coal dust. You know, we've got a passageway down to them now, and you're sitting there, and Dave Anderson says, we need to cut these legs off now so we can get him out of here. He's going to die. And the other guy on the other side is where Giggs and their team were. This guy was just kind of pinned. And we thought for sure our guy was going to die. You know, got to cut both of his legs off. We get him out of there. Giggs' guy, he just talking away. You know, yeah, this really sucks, you know, blah, blah, blah. As soon as they cut that steel off of him, compartment syndrome. Boom. He went into cardiac arrest within a minute. Brought him back and then went into cardiac arrest again en route. And he ended up passing away.
Wow.
The guy that the legs were amputated, he survived. But that other guy that you would have thought, but with that compartment syndrome, man, it just, literally within a minute, boom. Damn. So.
Is there room in our industry, and when I say our industry, you know, individually as law enforcement, fire, I know it's a little harder with the volunteer fire, but you know, EMS organizations, to staff some sort of mental health position.
Dispatch. Dispatch,
And
yeah.
dispatch, yeah. Is there wiggle room? And I think I'd ask that more from a standpoint of, you know, would that be possible at the sheriff's department? Would that be something you could pursue? Is have your own some sort of staff or?
I don't even think it would have to be just the sheriff's department.
That's what
I
was
think
gonna
it should
say.
be
I
a
wonder if it
group,
would be like
a
county
group
wide.
thing.
There you go.
Absolutely.
It's
You
a-
get
it's
you
like
get
a- like a
yeah, you
like
get
a
them from
whole team.
everywhere. You have all your team. Like I told you, when we get this group that we finally get to sit down with with the
Valley?
CEO with Valley. I would like to see a handful of the volunteer fire chiefs there, or an appointed representative. I think Mickey Reinhardt's the president of the association.
Okay.
He would be a good one to be there. You know, he spent his lifetime in as a first responder.
Yep.
He would be a good one to be there. But also get a couple of your tow operators, get a couple of your dispatchers that,
Talked about that on here, yeah, absolutely.
you know, there's dispatching wise. I mean, I feel so sorry for them. You know, they're like the left out group, and right now they've lost a lot of people over there at Mecca.
Everywhere.
Yeah,
I mean, there's been, you know, all the 911 centers that even I've had the, you know, the opportunity to work with over my years throughout the state. I mean, I think dispatch is one of the highest turned over jobs.
Yeah.
Especially now that you add, and Brittany would probably be, Brittany, you could probably help me with this, but the amount of people that have turned over at Mecca since what, 2020. I mean, like it's almost a complete.
Just go back 5 years and you're looking at, you know, almost a complete turnover. I mean, you do have the veterans there that have been there for.
There's not very many
ever and
veterans
ever.
left.
Right, and
there's not.
But you hear new voices on that radio
Yeah.
a lot. And
But now those people, now think about the veteran people there, the people that we, you know, that we grew up. I want to say grew up with. During my short amount of time in North Central, you know, I've still been able to grow up with some of these people throughout my time, but we grew those, like we formed those bonds
Yeah.
with those dispatchers, you know, and then you bring somebody new on, and you know God bless these people. They're struggling to train them. They're struggling to get them clear to radios and everything else. And then on top of that, they have to be able to, you know, build those bonds with those officers, build those bonds with the EMS workers, fire departments, and so on. And you know, the reason that they are forgotten is because it turns over so quick.
Yeah.
You can't get, like, it's not the way that, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but it's not the way that it used to be. Whenever when you marked on duty in the morning, you heard the voice and you're like, oh, I know that person.
It's gonna be a good day.
It's going to be a good day.
Good day,
Or oh, I know that person.
black
I'm
cat.
gonna go home.
well, but on night shift, you know, you got and when I worked nights, we actually spent a lot of time at Mecca.
Yeah.
And you got to know those folks more personal. It's very impersonal now. Like, when's the last time that a new hire went and visited the 911 center and got to meet every shift?
Yeah.
You know, or got to meet every person, you know, took enough time to see and put a face to every voice that they hear on that radio.
That's right.
And sometimes that's a disadvantage because you actually hear some spatting on the radio that you never get over that because you can't go back to that person and have a civil conversation because you really don't even know who the heck they are.
Right.
You know.
When's the last time there was an EMS picnic? I say EMS. When's the last time there was a first responder picnic?
Right.
Where you just get together with everybody.
Yep.
You have that
That's
camaraderie.
such a huge thing.
It is,
And
and it's gone.
everything.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
gone.
So-
I know times have changed, you know, and everything is so fast paced now. You don't have a lot of that time. We got to start making time.
We gotta
See, and that's what I was getting ready to say.
We have got to
It's
start
not
making
about,
it.
it's not about you don't have enough time. If we say constantly that we don't have enough time, then we're a part of that problem.
Exactly right.
And we need to
to
make the time to do things like
absolutely because that's what's going to build your team.
that. Yeah.
And it's not just, you know, it's not just building your agency team, it's building the entire industry together.
Sure.
You know, because we're going to work with law enforcement, we're going to work with fire, we're going to work with other EMS agencies, we're going to work with the 911 center. Why not? Like, don't, and I kind of feel like a lot of mental health is revolved around, well, how are we going to help the dispatchers? How are we going to help EMS? How are we going to help the law enforcement? No. Jason brought up what you said earlier is grow that strike force. Develop a strike force, and this is not just West Virginia, not just Montague County, Harrison County, Marion County, wherever. This is everywhere. build your strike force of people that actually know who the hell your people are.
Yes.
And Hannah brought up a good point. What if we build a therapist into the budget that solely worked with us? Yes, as long as we worked with everybody.
Right.
And then the comment was made, and split between all the agencies. Split that cost around, and don't get so hyper focused on the cost of it. Get hyper focused on what it's going to do for your people.
Right.
Because
the cost doesn't mean anything if
Right.
you're going to save. You're going to save
because
somebody's
if you
life.
can save, or exactly,
Just one person.
One
That's
person
it.
gets saved from it, then that person is invaluable.
Yes.
But in reality, all agencies have budgets.
Yes.
Okay. But one agency to eat that on a budget is astronomical. They cannot afford that. But like to your point, if all agencies share it or have a county-wide, the county creates a budget for it. Now it's split between all agencies. Absolutely, you can do it.
And we have to give credit to West Virginia Office of Emergency Medical Services, because they have started down the path of something great, and I hope that they continue to see it through. With the conversation that we got to have with the director
Sure.
and the state medical director,
And we're going to be right in the
giving-
middle of that conversation
Right.
from beginning to end. I do believe that.
But giving that money to the county ahead of time, and giving them at least, it's not the answer, and it's not the fix all, but it's
Sure.
a start.
That's
Right.
right.
And it's a start for EMS agencies to get out of your bubble and interact with the sheriff's department, interact with your fire departments, interact with your municipalities, and grow that strike force. Because when I have something bad happen to me, the last thing I want to do is go talk to therapist Smith.
Yeah. Who has no idea who you are?
Right.
I don't know you, number one. I don't trust you, number two. And it's because I just don't.
That's
But
what
number three, you don't understand me. When I could have
That's
Jason call me and be like, "Hey man, what's going on?" Or come to the station and be like, "Hey man, can we go for a walk?" That right there is the point. That right there is the key point of being able to take the person that you know, that you trust, and that you have a relationship built with. Because then at that point in time, I don't care if that person sees me vulnerable.
But absolutely, and I think when you go see therapist Smith, I think you said,
That's a generic name,
You're
by the
at
way.
least-
There's a therapist at Smith. I'm so sorry.
Probably $100.
I think that you're not even going to start to scratch the surface until session 3 or 4 before you even start to open up a little bit and let the guard down a little bit.
And then, so highlight your EAPs at this point in time. 5 free sessions?
Yeah.
3 to 5, I think is what
Yeah.
a normal EAP is. So by the time that you're just starting to peel back that first layer of the onion, guess what? Yep, so your sessions are over. Here's a referral to therapist. I'm not going to say another name.
Olavito.
You don't want that.
But then you're prolonging every freaking thing that you're doing, and
absolutely.
you're not getting anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas I could call you, and I'm sure to God I could call you, and half the people on this thread right now, and be like, "Hey, so this just happened, and I'm not doing so hot." Now, how many of us are going to do that? I'll be the first one to raise my hand and say I'm not going to. But at the same point in time, if the people know me, if the people know Jason, if the people know Josh, Dylan, Patrick, if they know that, and they're like, "Wait a second, Dylan didn't flip us the bird as soon as he came through the door. Something's up."
Yeah, if he come in and say, good evening, gentlemen. How are you guys doing today?
Right,
We
instead-
know something's wrong.
No, I've turned over a new leaf.
It's
No,
a
Well,
blind
he-
needle
If he
controlling.
showed, no, if
He
he
didn't
showed,
tell me to duck on the way in. Even though I'm short enough, I probably shouldn't have had a duck, but
if he would have shown up at 4:30 and said,
One of the things that really had bothered me about EMS work is the fact that on a typical shift in Morgantown, let's just use that as an example, how many times are you in that ER bringing a patient in?
on average, 7 to 8.
Okay, and so my problem with that system is you interact with the same doctors, the same nurses, and in there somewhere is a psych resident or a psych physician or whatever. How come these, WVU Medicine isn't more involved with what we're doing. You know, why aren't these health systems more involved with mental health? Why aren't they sending?
Because
What-
there's
who has?
hold on. Here's
No,
the
no,
answer.
no. Wait a
Yeah,
second.
But the answer's already there.
Okay.
Because they're failing at it themselves. Look at the nurses that are struggling.
Right, but so why doesn't that psych resident have to do a rotation? You know, why? How can we make that happen to where this psych resident has to do a rotation with law enforcement, do a rotation with EMS, do a rotation at a fire station, do a rotation with their own nurses in their ER, and just sit back and learn about the traumas that these people are dealing with day in and day out, instead of just and I'm not pointing fingers, I'm not singling anybody out, but dealing with the SI that comes in for the third time of the week, or the guy that wants detox for the fourth time this month. You know, send them out and let them see what these professionals are dealing with on a day in and day out basis.
That's
It doesn't
what I'm
cost them
gonna say.
anything as a residency.
Yes, but no, but
It costs the organization.
okay, so a resident. So you want a resident to do this?
Well, but
But-
it's got to start somewhere.
It does have to start somewhere, but
And
a
that's the
lot
thing.
of it.
When this gets started, this is something that we have to focus on as a group.
That's right.
We can't start this, and then next thing you know, a year down the road, it just where'd it go?
Yeah.
Hey, what happened? You know,
Flavor of the month.
you can't. This gets me so bad. I've been trying for years to do this, and to get this, and it seems like every time you take 2 steps forward or a step forward, you're taking 2 back, and then people are like, "Yeah, the hell with it," you know. We'll just let somebody else deal with it down the road. I don't want to be that person. I want to be that person that somebody looks and says, "My God, he stood by his word."
Right.
You know, he stayed. He did this. He focused on this, and he took the right steps, and he got the right people involved, and now it's something that's actually a part of, like the quick response team that we have in Montague County. You know, the first 6 months to a year, I thought, I don't know if this is going to last. You know, we had
Right.
people that were showing up, then people didn't show up. You never saw them again. I'm going to tell you right now, we as a quick response team in Montague County, we are the talk of the state. We have mentored people from Kentucky, Virginia. I want to say they were in Michigan, Indiana. I mean, we've gone all over the place. People are going, okay, at Montague County, West Virginia, or half of them call it Mongolia County.
Yeah.
But that Montague County, West Virginia, by God, they got this thing. It's called a quick response team, and this is what they do. Boom, boom, boom. They're naming all these things off. And you sit there and you look at the people that we have in this group. We have doctors. We have ministers. Stephen Prince, God love him. Our faith-based group. We have pharmacists. We have epidemiologists. We have peer recovery specialists. Coalition in Homelessness. I mean, just there's so many groups now that this is one of those things that, man, at first I thought this is.
So for the audience that is beyond our walls and don't know what the quick response team does, give us kind of the 30,000-foot view of this is the encompass, or this is the thought process behind the quick response team.
Basically, what now you got to understand how this works, because a lot of people they look at it as the wording is natural selection. Okay. You just said it a minute ago. I
Yeah.
mean, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th time detoxing. Okay. I'm gonna throw a shout out to Friendship Community and Recovery down on Don Knotts Boulevard, Tanner Ramsey.
Yeah.
Okay. I can honestly say that I probably Narcan Tanner Ramsey probably 5 times. The last time I Narcaned him, he probably should have went to jail, but he didn't. And I just basically told him, "You're going to die. You are going to die." And after EMS had talked to him and he signed a refusal, he came back over to me and he said, "Morgan," he said, "I'm ready, man. I'm ready." I said, "Let's go." I took him to Ruby. He stayed. He got clean. He's been clean. God help him. His brother, Travis, overdosed and died, like I think 3 or 4 years ago. So he had to deal with that. But Tanner's now the executive director of Friendship Community and Recovery.
No kidding.
He is doing a phenomenal job down there.
Wow.
They're holding NA meetings. They just held the first, and it's going to sound stupid, but Meth Users Anonymous. They just held the first one, I believe, in the state. So they're breaking these things down, not just Narcotics Anonymous. They're doing it for Heroin Users Anonymous, Meth Users Anonymous. They're breaking these down. But what the quick response team does is we take people out of addiction as best we can and get them into recovery, long-term recovery. We have places like Lauren's Wish, to where it's, I call it the hovering program, okay? You can bring them in, they stay there. They have people with them all the time until they can get into long-term care. You're not doing it like it was back in the day when people were like, oh, I can't get into rehab, I got a 6-month, 8-month wait. No. We've got so many resources available right now that we are able to get people into these temporarily until we can get them into long-term facility. We're not just taking them and throwing them back out on the streets. I've talked to judges, magistrates, prosecutors. We have the public defender's office now that's on board. You get these groups that are willing to sit there and they talk, the public defenders, talk to prosecutors. Hey, let's give this guy a chance. Get him into rehab. Don't keep him in jail. Keep him in jail. You can get as much dope in jail as you can on the streets. Okay? Let's get him into rehab. If they screw up, they leave against, their thing, then put them back in jail. But let's at least try to give them a chance. The jails are so overpopulated right now.
Right.
You've got the National Guard
Yeah.
that's working
Yeah.
in there, But that's what the quick response team does. We try to get them out of addiction into recovery. Now, you take that addict who's stealing, prostituting, doing whatever to get their next fix. Now, you take that out of the equation, you put them into recovery. Now there's no more stealing from that person.
Right.
So you take the next person. You try to get these people, and it's common sense. You get them into recovery. They get their kids back. West Virginia used to be #1 for children in foster care. God, let's get these kids back with their parents.
Right.
Sometimes there are parents that probably just don't need to be back because they don't want to, but at least give them a chance.
Mm-hmm.
But we get that. We get them back with their families. Crime rate goes down. It's a win-win for everybody.
Right.
I know.
One of the things that you're saying, though, is, and there's, number one, the QRT is amazing. Working with those guys and seeing how they operate, seeing how much how much compassion and dedication they have for that group is nothing short of amazing to me. We need a QRT team for mental health.
Absolutely.
That's like everything that you're saying about what the QRT team does, and how successful they are, how successful they are currently, and will continue to be, if allowed to be. Now take that one step further, and make the quick response team for mental health.
Absolutely.
Make it for first responder based. Make it for veteran based, because your numbers. I've never heard those numbers the statistics that you were sharing. But
They're astronomical.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah, it's mind blowing.
I mean,
but
mind blowing.
now I would like to add one more tier to that, and unfortunately we would probably have to do a lot of digging. But how many first responders did we lose during that time frame? Not only to the 9/11 tragedy that occurred, but
Absolutely.
but the people who did get out, that had to suffer with losing their fellow brother, sister, of whatever it may be.
And we're still losing them from 9/11.
Right. Yeah. The long-term medical effects.
Yeah, your
are
long-term
happening.
medical effects.
But it is time to develop, and I honestly think that West Virginia, being on the right step, has the ability to lead the pack when it comes to developing a QRT team for mental health awareness, mental health resiliency. We call this the resilient responder because we want everybody to be resilient. We want to
wanna
walk
build
with
that
you.
resiliency,
We
yeah.
want to work. We want to walk on that journey with you and continue down through. And much like the QRT team is on the addiction side of it, that is what we need on the first responder side of it.
Sure.
The third Tuesday of every month at Milan Park, and I'm sure we'll probably change it with the winter months, but the third Tuesday at 9 a.m. Every month, Operation Welcome Home, we get together at the track and we walk for 1 hour. It's open to anybody. It's not just veterans, but you would be surprised the people that show up that have nothing to do with military. They've never had a family member in. They say, hey, do you care if we walk with you? No. And then they start asking you questions. They start talking to you. How awesome would that be to have, 100 first responders up there,
Right.
and 100 civilians up there,
Yeah.
to where now it's not just 1 hour that we're walking, but it's 2 hours maybe. You don't have to walk if you don't want to. Just sit around.
There's bleachers.
Talk. There's bleachers, absolutely. Or walk a couple laps and leave if you want. you know. But just to get up there and hearing some of the stories, hearing some of the other veterans.
Yeah.
You know, our executive director, Nicole Gerard, I think she's done like 3 or 4 tours in Afghanistan as a
Really?
military police, a female military police officer. I mean, phenomenal.
And you said third Tuesday of every month?
Third Tuesday of every month at the track at Milan Park.
Yeah.
What time?
9 a.m. We walk from 9 to 10. Occasionally, we'll throw a curveball in there, and we'll meet on the first Tuesday of the month out at like the Botanical Garden, and we'll just walk the
that's-
Botanical
Ah,
Garden
nice.
together.
That is nice.
You know, just to throw something in there, just a little change. But there's just so many. You know, you talked about getting involved with ActiVet. Chuck Gusty, awesome guy,
Right.
and he has since changed ActiVet to not just veterans.
Yeah.
It's now frontline workers, first responders,
Yeah. Yeah, we had that
So-
conversation, and just a super,
and that's great.
super great guy. Sounds like he's really got his head on right with what he's trying to do and what he's trying to accomplish, and really trying to serve the purpose that and the legacy that his son left behind. So
Yeah.
it's just
If
really-
we don't take care of them, we're not going to have
that's
them.
exactly right.
I was so during COVID. It broke my heart to see my fiance come home from work every morning.
Yeah.
She's a respiratory therapist. To see her coming home from work and then knowing that she's going to go back to work, and she's going to go back and 2 or 3 of the patients that she took care of have passed away, and just to see it in her eyes, just broke my heart. I sat there and I thought, God, how does she? I mean, you talk about a strong woman.
Right.
But
And-
those are the ones that we need to include in this thing. It can't just be for your police officers, your volunteer firefighters, your paid firefighters, your EMS personnel.
It's all frontline
It's
work.
got to be
Yeah.
the nurses that deal with these things, your ER
Absolutely.
nurses, your ones that deal with all these. But they can be separated into different groups. But you know, like I said, if we don't start taking care of them, they're not going to be there,
Yeah.
and we're going to be just stuck one.
And our numbers are dwindling every day because there's no new coming in.
That's right.
Look at the volunteer fire departments. You're getting 3 and 4 toned
Yeah.
for for something small.
For a
For
medical
You're getting
phone.
3 or 4 tons
for a
something
medical
big.
cough. Yeah. And
There's no
you're
one to
sitting
show
here,
up.
you're going, who was there? Why in the world were they there? Well, because the other 2 didn't get out.
Yeah.
And you're going, wow.
Yep. You're exactly right.
We've been on big calls before where sometimes you want to take trophies with you for this distance.
Right? Yeah. What time's the judging start?
So we're approaching hour 20, and
Yeah, we
I
are.
can't believe it.
I can't either. I mean, it's been
Um,
such a it's just rolled tonight.
From the bottom of my heart, I will tell you, having the chance to know you as long as I have. Number one, thank you for your service to the country. Thank you for doing everything that you've done. Thank you for your time in EMS. Thank you for your time in the fire service. Thank you for your time in law enforcement. I hope it continues.
I thought he was talking about me.
Thank you, Josh. We'll come back
He
to you.
threw law enforcement out there, and I was like, oh, he's talking about Jason.
but thank you for everything that you have done for me personally, just on calls that we've been on. And thank you for the opportunities to share, but also thank you for what you are currently doing and what you will continue to do. That you're listening to your resume, and I know that you and I have texted a little bit back and forth, but your resume, I knew nothing about it when you and I were on the streets together, and I knew nothing about it. I honestly thought, that's a deputy. He's kind of cool. We can joke around. We can have fun. And he makes
won't
fun of me,
arrest
and I
me.
make fun of him. But to sit back and watch you, to watch what you're doing is nothing short of amazing.
I knew him before he was a deputy, so
Well, it's funny that you said that, because there's been calls that I've been on with EMS, bad car wrecks, trauma calls and stuff like that. And the medics are over there. You got 2 or 3 medics. They're doing this, they're doing that. And you look, and here comes one of the white shirts. They jump up in the back of the ambulance, and they look at me, and they're going, "What the hell are you doing?" He said he needed a couple IV bags spiked. I'm spiking IV bags, and they're going, "What?" And you hear somebody go, "That's Morgan. He knows what he's doing." And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, I've spiked a bag or 2.
And I wish I could remember what the hell call it was from, but I was digging through something, and I have a pair of your sheriff's gloves. I have no idea.
That's
from
where they went.
Yeah, and of course these bear paws, they will not fit in them, but I've got them, so I'll get those back. I meant to bring them tonight, and yeah, I looked right at him and I was like, I bet he forgot he even gave those to me. I don't remember what we were doing.
Well, I will say it's been my pleasure being here. I am so glad you guys have started this and where it's going, and I pray that it continues. And just know that I'm always here for anything. I've posted my phone number numerous times on here. If anybody has questions, concerns, calls, call me.
Yeah,
I'm another ear to listen, and with a lot of the QRT and police, fire, and EMS. I've got a lot of good contacts out there. I've got a lot of physicians that are friends of mine. I've asked questions. Greg Schaefer, boom, call him up, ask him a question. He gives you right off, just boom, right there.
Yep.
So anything I can do to help in any way, shape, or form, I'm here.
I have a feeling you'll be one of those guests that we'll invite back on more occasions. 'Cause I feel like we've only scratched the surface, and there's a lot of good comments coming up. And I think as people go back and as the show hits the podcast centers and things like that, I think there'll be more questions that come up and more thoughts that come up. So I definitely hope we can do this again and have you back.
I'd be glad to.
Before we depart, huge shout out to JB Kimball.
Oh yeah, man.
The,
JB, if you're
he's
on,
the-
thank you so much for having us last week.
He's the chief of Buchanan Fire Department. We got to attend one of the county commission meetings where they have voted to support mental health awareness in Upshur County and even the region around. So JB offered us to be there. Dylan and I got the ability to go down. So
And speak to the
we
commission.
did. We got to speak with them, and that was all really cool stuff to see that unfold. FRC, First Responder Coaching. These gals that we've been dealing with are nothing short of amazing. The programs and the things that they're doing to help us and to educate us further is and allowing us to do their podcast even. So thank you to First Responder Coaching, Battalion 1 Consulting. They've been dabbling on our page, I see.
Yep. They work in close partnership with FRC, so they've got a good thing going, and fortunately we've been brought into that as well. So
A couple save the dates that we have are the Country Roads Fire Conference, January 12th and the 14th in Buchanan. We will be there.
12, 13, 14. So it's a Friday, starts Friday evening, ends Sunday afternoon. There's some events I know on Saturday evening as well. Hopefully there'll be a show at some point, because that would be a normal weekend for us. And from that show, the 15th of January is EMS Day on the Hill at Charleston. So we will be at that. We're going to have a table set up at that event as well.
As always, guys, find us on your local find us on your social media platform of choice. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have YouTube. I'll throw up all the @ signs and whatever they're called nowadays. That way you can find us. Subscribe to us, like us, share us, do everything like that. Also, it was actually Dylan's idea, and I can't believe this because you're the oldest. Who's older, you or Josh?
He's older. I've been quiet for too long.
I guess
So Dylan texted me the other night, and he goes, "Hey man, what do you think about a TikTok page?" And I said, "Is this Kylan?"
Well,
give your dad his phone back.
He said that to me, and I was like, "You serious, bro? Like,
I
we'll
hate
do
you
it."
guys. I really do.
So
Deep down, there's a lot of hatred.
So we are on TikTok. I think that right now I'm the only one that has access to it.
Probably, but I mean,
That's
the
pretty
thing
safe.
is just getting little snippets of the show out. And
Yeah,
getting little
the more
snippets-
people you can reach, the better.
Right. It's just getting that material out, and I think you'll see a lot of that. Especially if we are at a show, like
Absolutely.
Country Roads. Expect some stuff to come out of that, and I've never really. I've watched some stuff on TikTok, but wouldn't know the first thing about posting anything on there, so I don't know if it gets edited or how whatever it is.
We haven't.
So that's what I'm saying. So that's why I
I'm-
tasked that with
Yep.
you. So we'll get some more stuff out there.
Can I throw
So,
one more thing in real quick?
Absolutely.
As the board of trustee of the VFW Post 9916, last December we had a destruction of flooding For the last year, we've been rebuilding everything, remodeling everything. Hopefully, we're going to be back open, up and running. And with the approval of the members, I have 4 different memberships now, other than VFW member, who's those who served in a foreign war, auxiliary members, those who have a family member that served in a foreign war. I have a first responder membership, which is police, fire, EMS, dispatch, tow operators. I have a military veteran membership. Those who don't qualify for veteran of foreign war membership, they can get a military veteran membership. And then we have just a canteen membership. The national doesn't allow you to have social memberships, so I decided, why don't we come up with these?
That's awesome.
And it gives everybody a place to, you don't have to come in and drink a beer. Come in and shoot some pool. Come in and watch a football game. Come in and talk to some of these old veterans. You know, our veterans aren't getting any younger.
Right.
That's right.
I've been trying to recruit some of these, some younger guys in, you know. Our guys that are doing the funeral details, they're in their 70s and 80s. These guys are going to the funerals, going to the cemeteries, 21 gun salute, in cold weather, everything like that.
Now,
I'm not
where-
asking people to come
Where's
and
that
do
one
anything.
located? Which
That's
one?
on Holland Avenue in
That's the one
Westover.
in Westover,
Yeah.
okay.
The
I
one
didn't
right
know they
there,
went through
just
the
down from the
flood.
fire hall, right?
Yes.
Yep. Yep.
So anybody, like I said, anybody's welcome. It doesn't cost that much. Right now, if you get it before the end of the year, it's good for the end of the year and then all of next year.
Which we
But,
also talked about doing a little meet and greet and a little social gathering of our own there.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
We could
we'll-
hold a SCAR show there if need
Absolutely,
be.
yeah.
That would be
yeah,
awesome.
So I would love to get to a point where we do a live one there. We do a meet and greet. Anybody wants to come can come. Open door policy. You know, come in and join us, and we'll do the show in front of the crowd, and everybody can just kind of
Yep.
rub elbows, talk, get to know each other.
Yep.
Be on a lookout for some postings that we'll do about upcoming shows. There are going to be some days with the holidays coming in. We're going to probably switch up at some days coming up around the Thanksgiving time, and then as we move into December. So just be watching our page. Turn the notifications on. That way you don't miss anything. We'll try to be as proactive with posting and stuff as we possibly can. If you have questions or if you want to reach out to us about anything, scarsfrservices@gmail.com. All 3 of us have access to that email, and it's very much if you send us something, we're going to respond to you.
Yes.
We're not going to leave you in the queue for it. So if you guys have questions, if you have ideas for future shows, if you have anything you want to bring to our attention, feel free to reach out to us. Our email is there below. And we will be reaching out to you guys for our next show. I don't know when that's going to be yet. We're still kind of trying to iron out some details. But again, Jason, on behalf of the Resilient Responder and SCARS, thank you.
Wait one second.
I'm sorry.
Do you guys, just to throw it out there, like your VFW or anything, we're coming up on the holiday season. Are there any food drives, anything like that we need to be aware of, something that we can get ourselves involved with, or have our viewers maybe?
I tell you, some of the things, I'll just throw them up here, Pantry Plus, Scotts Road Settlement House.
Okay.
We don't have anything right now at the VFW because we're about 95% done.
Okay.
So we're still kind of not doing it. Next year, absolutely. Next year, we're going to haul all kinds of stuff. We're going to, hopefully in conjunction with the fire department, we're going to do like a Santa Day to where the kids can come in. We do have some of those coming up with the Shriners, Dream Machines, the Rotary, different groups that are going to be doing those at the VFW. But the Veterans Home. If anybody wants to donate to the Veterans Home, they can bring anything they want to the VFW. They can call me. I'll pick it up. Slippers, boxers, pajamas, stuff like that for the Veterans Home. Anything like that.
And we'll start looking at some of that stuff too. Maybe we'll do some
Fundraiser.
food drive, Angel Tree, something like that, where our viewers come together
Yeah.
and do, we'll go out and shop for a couple of
Veterans.
Angel Tree or anything like that.
Absolutely.
So be watching for some of that. We'll come up with some ideas. I mean, it is coming into the holiday season, and if we don't get out and do something, these long nights make us all more doom and gloom than what we are in the
If you're
summer.
bored, I have plenty of.
Right, yeah. Josh is building an addition on his house. He needs people who can swing a hammer.
You should have heard about this. He told me when I got here. He said, "I'm the only one that knew how to operate the equipment." And I said, "You, sir."
Yeah, because
Nah,
he was
people
sitting
like
in
that,
the
I guess.
equipment while everybody else was. I'll lift this up for you. I love it. I think it's a great idea.
And he was like,
No,
"Oh,
no,
it's so
no.
hard. I got to sit here with this brake, and my legs are cramping, Patrick.
Oh, my legs are
cramping."
cramping.
That's
I
a true
said-
story. The emergency brake wouldn't work.
I love it. I love it.
Thanks for being a part of the show tonight. We got to go.
Yep. Love
Guys.
you all. Thank you.
Guys, on behalf of First Responder Coaching, the Resilient Responder, and SCARS Incorporated, thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.